Hi, this is Mary Frances Drake. I am presenting today on place, identity, and belonging. A course I took with Dr. Sharon Blackie, and this is a recording for a final project for Ubiquity University for the 4 credits for this transfer class. So I'm going to go right into sharing a slideshow with you about what I gathered and my experiences related to the topic of place, identity, and belonging. Let me see if I can get us going here. Okay, there we go. Okay, so as I said, this is for a final project. I'm also doing this because I have a group of ministers, and we've done some earthworks projects in different places around the country, and I'm also going to Chakra with the Chakra Academy, leaving today actually for Chakra, France, and very excited to be going to that cathedral and feeling the energies there, and working with the other folks who are gathering there to raise up the feminine energy, which in my experience is what is lacking or has been usurped and diverted and has caused the imbalance of toxic masculinity, which needs to be restored. And that's why I am a fan of Sharon Blackie, because she's talking about that, what she calls the mythic imagination, what I call the spiritual connection with the earth and the energies of the earth. And that was the motivation for me to take this class with her. So in her course, she was asking 4 questions, which brought up a lot of my history in relation to the earth and to the energies of the earth. What can place tell us about who we are and who we might one day become? And I wrote there the Hazelwood in County Sligo in Ireland, which is a place that I have visited for many years now and have a very visceral connection with, especially the Hazelwood, in which I had many experiences of the earth spirits there, which I'll talk to you about as we go along. How can we put our roots down deeply into the land and find a sense of belonging there? Again, in County Sligo, along the Hazelwood Trail, the rough trail, not the groomed trail, there's a fairy field that I had that kind of connection with that I'll talk about. How can we find the gods in our places once again? And talking about going to Mauna Kea in Hawaii, which I did earlier this year with a group of ministers, and we did some reparation, reconciliation, and reconnection work there. How can we engage in conversation with the other than humans in our places? I spent a couple of months in Ireland, Scotland, and the UK this spring, and had many experiences with stone circles and standing stones in Scotland, as well as in the UK, including Glastonbury and Stonehenge. And then how can we relate to the mind of a place using our attention, intention, the offerings that we bring, reconciliation, reparation with the land and the mind of the world and the Earth Mother to restore balance. So this presentation has a triple purpose. One is for my class, and then the other one is for this group in Chakra, in looking at the reparation, reconciliation, and reconnection between the Divine Mother, center of the earth, and the Sacred Father, the center of the sun, and how do we get those energies moving again to restore balance in the world in order that we can have help to create the more beautiful world our hearts know is possible. And that's a Charles Eisenstein book that I quote quite often, because it is the focus that I have in doing all of this work, whether it's the spiritual work that I do with individuals as a Christian mystical priest and bishop, or whether that is when I'm doing earthworks and reconnecting the energy of the earth to the energy of the sun, and rebalancing the cosmic those cosmic forces, and using my consciousness and body to do that, which is, I believe, the reason that we're gathering at Chakra, and the reason that Karen Blackie is doing this work, to help people reconnect and become reestablished to the earth and the cosmos, and our hearts being the meeting place between the two. So Ireland drew me a number of years ago. In 2013, I went there for the first time and felt very much like I was coming home. And I asked my mother, why do I feel that way? And she said, we have heritage there. So her grandmother and great-grandparents came over from Italy. I'm from Ireland. And so I started going back there, and I was drawn to Sligo, County Sligo, because I'm a poet, and that's where William Butler Yeats is from. And then also I went to a pilgrimage site, or hermitage there in Sligo, and did a bunch of spiritual work there. So going back over and over again, and the picture behind me here is Half Moon Bay in Sligo on Lochgill, and I've spent many months in that area, connecting with the trees, connecting with the water and the spirits in that area. So the Hazelwood is the woodland that I connected to most strongly. I've had mystical experiences at the Hill of Tara, including falling into the Stone of Destiny there, and experiencing some time travel experiences well before I knew anything about Outlander or any such thing. Carrickeel passage tombs and other passage tombs in County Sligo, and also related to Knocknarea, the mythic mountain of Queen Maeve. And so I was kind of a novice in these things as I started out, and then started to have experiences in all of these different places. And so that's what I thought I would share. Some of them before I took Dr. Blackie's class, and some of them since then. I also went to the Giant's Causeway and the basalt volcanic pillars that are there and go across into Scotland, and those ley lines that go across there, and the powerful energy streams that are happening in that part of the world. So in the Hazelwood, these are some images of the Hazelwood trails. The first one on the left is Lochgill, the same image that's behind me now. And then there is a threshold. There's, or there used to be anyway. This threshold has unfortunately been taken down. But I wanted to talk about the threshold experience of finding a way into a natural place. Of course, in cathedrals and places like that, they have beautiful archways that are thresholds. But in the forest, generally, it's branches or guardian trees or something. This is a human-made threshold, but important nonetheless. So entering into a place requires some ritual connection between your being and the energy of the place. Something that many people have forgotten, to offer something, even if it's some, saliva on the ground or flowers, or bringing some foodstuffs and leaving them there, so that you're asking permission to enter. And I'll talk more about that when we get to the Hawaiian experience that I've had. So when I first came to the Hazelwood, I did that. I entered on this this is the trail that's along the lake, which is much more groomed than the other trail, which I'll show you in a minute. And then there's the grotto, man-made grotto there, but nonetheless a grotto that is, excuse me, looking out over the water and holding space for people to sit or be out of the weather. And you can see next to that, I have, I set up an altar. Oh, I guess I can use my arrow here. I set up an altar, and I actually did a communion and baptism in this grotto on an early morning in 2019, I guess it was. Then below that is the Garibaldi River, which goes into Sligo town. Also the energy of this lake and this river moving out to the sea, very much in support of natural connection. And then the tree at the top is a hazelwood tree that can't see very well in this picture, but there's a face in this tree that seems to me, my experience of that tree is the grandmother of this forest, kind of the guardian. And then this is a yew tree. Yew trees are beautiful and also poisonous, and they split themselves open so that other generations can grow right out of them. So this forest and lake area called to me, and I communed with it many times on walks and other experiences. And then there was the bog trail. So you can see to the left here, the Hazelwood Path. This bog trail is not so well used, although since COVID, there was a lot of money put into the forestry, and they've made it wider and more accessible. And then this one down here, the fairy field. So this is a fairy field with a single tree in the field and the circle of plants you can see here. So on a full moon night, I went out with my staff here that a druid, Irish druid man made for me. Went out into this Hazelwood forest and did a ritual around this particular fairy circle, and was invited into the forest by the beings of the forest, and that was something like what we might call the green man of that forest and the queen of that forest, the queen of the fairies of that forest. And there are many fairy beings, elemental beings, let's call them, and inviting me to come in. Now, I am, as a Christian mystic, I'm very attuned to Jesus and Mary, and so I was like, I'm not sure what's happening here the first time this happened to me. So I had the beings of Jesus and Mary behind me and the forest beings inviting me, and there was no conflict between the two, of course. And so when I offered myself to this fairy field, what they wanted me to do was to go back and help keep bring the earth back to life and keep the forests in mind, and let people know about how to connect with them on a spiritual level, on an energetic level, so that we can be back in a symbiotic relationship with the earth and the elemental spirits of the earth. So this staff that was made for me, you can see here the human body as being the bridge between the heavens reaching up and the earth reaching down with the roots. So I had many experiences in the Hazelwood, releasing souls of people who had died. One part of my history is that I worked in hospice for some time as a social worker and chaplain. And so I did active ritual to release souls that were kind of stuck to the earth or didn't know they had passed over or needed some help. So I did that along the Hazelwood, in the Hazelwood and along Lochgill as well. So these connections that Sharon Blackie was talking about in our class were, how do you connect yourself to the spirits of these places? And for me, it's been an unfolding process. And this is one example at Mauna Kea, the big island in Hawaii. I was invited to officiate at a wedding. So this is my friend Catherine and her husband now, Phil, and they invited me to come as a minister to officiate their wedding in Hawaii. And they wanted it to be aligned with the energies of the Hawaiian native ritual. So here, an image of me with Nali, who is Phil's daughter, and she has gone to school in Hawaii her whole life, and so knew all of the prayers for permission to enter, requests to enter, the traditional Hawaiian wedding prayers and songs. And so she was instrumental in connecting me with the land as I got there, and we found a spot along Turtle Bay in the woods next to a banyan tree, which is where we did the wedding ceremony. But when I was invited there, I started thinking about, I know the universe, how the universe works, and my commitment to serving means that when I'm going somewhere, I know that there's a reason for me to be there that's maybe bigger than the presenting reason. And certainly the reason for going to do this wedding was plenty of reason to go to Hawaii, especially since this couple wanted to dedicate their relationship to the more beautiful world our hearts know is possible by creating not only a wedding, but a marriage that represented the balance of the masculine and feminine within themselves and in their couple. So we did a lot of work in preparation for that. And then I came across this book, The Bowl of Light, by Hank Wesselman, which talks about a shaman in Hawaii. And here's an image of the shaman, Hale Makua, who I had just barely started reading the book before I left for Hawaii. And when I got on the plane and was contemplating, what am I going to do there? Where will we go? I had already decided to go to the Big Island because Mauna Kea there is considered the holy mountain for the Hawaiian people. And I felt like there was some kind of reparation that needed doing. And of course, when I investigated that further, I could see that the top of that holy mountain was blown off by the US government in order to make observatories, astronomical observatories. And then they switched the holy mountain. The government said, this hill here now is your holy mountain. So where I was taking this picture from was actually the top of the mountain, and this is where they transferred the energy, or they transferred the holy mountain over here so people could still go there, but it was actually the top of the holy mountain had been taken off. So as you can imagine, energetically, that's a big thing. You take off the holy mountain and just move it somewhere else for the sake of science or profit or acclaim or many things like that. So I was visited in a dream by the mountain because I had asked, I had a connection in Hawaii, and I'd asked about maybe having an elder receive the reconciliation that I felt I wanted to do. And that elder said I should be humble and wait for an invitation. So I was like, okay. So then I had a dream, and the mountain came to me in the dream and invited me to come. And then in the dream, I was hanging off the inside of the mountain, the volcano, and the mountain said, let go. And I let go into it. And it was a very gentle fall into a dark, welcoming space, not scary at all, not damaging or harmful at all. And I felt very held in it and welcomed. So I did take that as an invitation and started to prepare myself. And then when I was on the flight, this being, Hale Makua, came and took me out of my body off the plane, flew me there over the volcano, and showed me what it was that I needed to do, which was basically joining my feminine with his masculine in a kind of double helix spin over the mountain to reconnect the energy of the holy mountain to the energy of the sun, and clear away the damage that had been done by the mind of the world, by the U.S. government that had blown off this mountaintop for the sake of some adventure or a scientific exploration, rather than choosing a different place to do that. And so I knew what my mission was, but I really didn't know, how I would go about that. But it was starting to piece itself together. And I think that's one of the things that's most beautiful about this process, which I've come to call Earthworks, is that I don't always know why I'm going or what's going to happen or what connection I'll have. But more and more things start to evolve, and then I get help, and people come in, like Nolly knowing the prayers, and so I went, and we got a place on the Big Island. So after the wedding, we went to the Big Island, myself and some other ministers. So here I call my merry band of ministers. These women are all deacons or priests or bishops in the mystical Christian tradition. So we each had a part in this reparation, reconciliation, and reconnection process that we were trying to bring to Mauna Kea. Again, it was all unfolding, and so we did what we could. We made a basket of offerings, and we had the prayers. My sister Elise is a singer, and so she offered the prayers in song, which were very beautiful and powerful. And then we brought this basket full of offerings to the mountain, flowers and fruits and seeds and stones and items that we were offering to the mountain. So you can see here the observatory, and this is where we were standing to do our ceremony, and there's the holy mountain as it is now designated by the government. So here the basket is on the ground, and we did all of our ritual prayer and dance ritual around that basket. And each person who was coming was representing the more beautiful world our hearts know is possible. So we had Master Kara who did some work releasing the energy of souls that were harmed or stuck around that area based on the indigenous peoples there being mistreated. And then Reverend Cesarina Grace did a dance for women, for the rising of the feminine in women and girls, and the protection of them from the things that have oppressed women and girls, including sexual assault and oppression and all that. My sister, Master Lee, she did the songs of entry and exit, and then sang a song about connection. And then Deacon Catherine, who is the woman that got married there, she and her husband were doing a dance that had to do with the masculine feminine reconciliation in humans, and then also, of course, between the earth and the sky, the center of the earth, the heart of the earth, and the heart of the sun, mother, father, we could say. So all of them danced at this place with rarefied air and a lot of colds. It was quite cold there. They were doing their dance and singing and feeling the effect of the rarefied air at that altitude. And our tour guide was saying that the top of this mountain, they call it, in the Hawaiian culture, call it heaven. And it really had an otherworldly energy to it. So we did our reparation dance with the mountain in sight where the shrine is now for the holy mountain. And as we were doing that, the sun was going down and the moon was coming up. And when we finished, I sang a song about how we need each other and the connection is important. These are just popular songs that we found that we were attuned to and that felt very salient to the situation. And then when we finished, I could feel the energy shifting and the spirit of the mountain coming up to embrace us and thank us for what we were doing, and making ourselves a bridge to offer the reparation and reconciliation, but also the reconnection between the new top of the mountain, the original holy mountain, and the center of the sun. And so that energy was moving very strongly through my body into the earth. The response of the earth was thankful and joyful, and then into the sun, and the response of the sun was also grateful and strong. And so I felt what happened was the mind of the world moved away as we did this reparation and reconciliation, got cleared away, and then there was an opening for that reconnection between the earth and the sky, or the earth and the sun, to rebalance the masculine and feminine, so we don't burn ourselves up or use ourselves up, or eat up the earth as we have been doing when the masculine is imbalanced. So that was the experience at Mauna Kea. It was a new experience for me in purposefully doing those kinds of things with the earth itself. I'd done many of that kind of thing with spirits, releasing spirits who are deceased, and blessing people, initiating and ordaining people, individuals. But this was the first purposeful reconciliatory ritual that we put together, and it was very powerful, very powerful. We were all quite elated when we were finished, and our tour guide was very interested in what we were doing, and we had a lot of auspicious and synchronous connections with him, as well as of course that happens when you're syncing yourself to the energies of the earth. Then the one mind comes into play, and the people that need to be there and the information you need all come together in such a beautiful way to make it possible for that reparation and reconciliation to happen, and the reconnection, which is really the thing that helps to manifest the more beautiful world that our hearts know is possible. So, whoops, it's not letting me go now. Okay, so then this spring I went to Ireland and did a lot of work there, which I've done many times before, but then I went to Scotland, and so I have this image of La Vérité, Jerome's painting of truth coming from the well, armed with her whip to chastise mankind. And so I kind of felt like that when I was in Glasgow. I didn't know Glasgow at all. I didn't know the history of Glasgow. I just knew that there was something there I needed to do, and I felt drawn there. A friend of mine from the UK joined me there, and I spent the first day feeling around the city and seeing what was there that I needed to address. I felt a deadening experience of energy. I wandered around looking for things, and what I found was that there was a triangle, let's say, of the cathedral, which used to be a Catholic cathedral and was taken over in the Reformation, under John Knox, and is now a Church of Scotland cathedral. The military police force, which is in another part of town, and that building had what looked like an angel at first sight, but when I got closer, it was really more like a changeling or a winged demon versus an angel, which was quite shocking to me. And then the Mercat building, which is the business center, and in the front of the Mercat building is a statue of a unicorn, which is part of the UK's crest of arms, so there's the crest, and then one side is a lion and the other side is the unicorn. And the unicorn interestingly has a collar, or a collar that is the crown, and it's chained to the crest. So I could see right away that that's the feminine energy of manifestation, the mystical, magical energy chained to the power structure, which in this place was money or business, military or police or force, and then the church. So that triangulation was very interesting. And in the center of that was the what's called the toll booth, which is a tower that was used to collect taxes, imprison people, and punish or hang people. So it was very much the power structure. If you weren't aligned with those forces of religious power and business power, then the military and the police would be the forceful support of making you get in line. So I could feel this whole dynamic happening as I went around the city. And you may know that behind the cathedral in Glasgow is the necropolis, which is a cemetery on top of a hill. And so what I found with the earthworks is that the topography really matters, and the highest thing in the town really matters. And on top of that hill, in that cemetery, the highest stone there, monument, was for John Knox. And so his statue is at the very height of Glasgow. So other things about that is, so I did some reparation work in all of these places. And so the necropolis is up there. I noticed that in the cathedral itself, there was a holy well in the underground in the cathedral that had been diverted for the sake of the business and industry in the area. So the feminine was out of the building. When they took over, when the reformers took over, they stripped the building of all of the stained glass, every image of Mother Mary gone. Most of the stained glass replaced there had to do with people of power or people in the military. So military business power who supported that church. And so then the church served the the business and military power rather than the people serving God. So it seemed like the energy shifted where the masculine went up above the feminine devotion. That was the way to tune into that spiritual world and the graces of that. And we can look at that in the earth, like the ley lines or the energy lines, geomagnetic lines, or water, all the things that can be usurped for the purpose of greed or power. So that's what I was feeling, and so I went into the cathedral, and there's a shrine to Saint Mungo there, and then the spirits of these powerful men at the necropolis, and I did some work there. So here's the triangulation of those energies: cathedral, the Mercat, the police station, and then the toll gate at the center of those three. And then this is the cathedral. So here's an image of the unicorn with the crown as a collar and the chain to the crest. There's the well that was dry, St. Mungo's tomb. It's my friend Jo, who lives in Nottingham, but she's from Poland originally. You know, it's a beautiful piece of architecture, but all the spirit felt like it was out of it. And of course, it's being used now as a museum almost, and so it was not used currently for spiritual work or ritual, as far as I could tell. The interesting thing is, at the transept of the cathedral, I was looking up at the ceiling, and I felt like the heart of the cathedral had been taken out. So that hole, I was asking, what was there before? And I had the sense that it was a piece of stained glass that might have the Holy Spirit or the Sacred Heart, because when I stood at that center, I could feel the energy of the cathedral at that transept, and it was missing. So what happens in me is I get a little irritated and aggravated with such things and want to do something about it. So I did several things. First, we went up to the necropolis, and this image here with my very serious face, looking up at John Knox monument. And I started to, I moved by the Spirit, so I started to sing a song by Allison Russell that is interestingly called Joyful Motherfuckers. And basically what it does is invokes the spirit of people who are deceased in order to get them involved in changing the energy. And so I was singing this to the graveyard, to the souls there, and to John Knox, and said, you got to give up the ghost now, because the masculine, the imbalance of the masculine became toxic, and it's affecting our world, and nobody's going to win, because we'll ruin our world. We'll wreck our world for humankind, so there'll be no power, no money for anyone. So I solicited and, kind of dragged some of them to give up the ghost and let go and be released, so that part of the mind of the world that was their legacy was power. And so they were stuck to the earth because of that, and I sent them on their way. And then I went back to the cathedral, to the well, and I put some selenite stone in the well, and I sang into the well, and drew the energy of the waters back towards the cathedral, back towards the heart of the city, which would be this cathedral and their saint. And then as I was doing those two things, I could see the triangle falling and creating a space in the mind, and that toll booth falling into the earth. And then again, like on Mauna Kea, the energy coming up from the center of the earth into the center of the sun, and creating that channel of energy, pillar of light moving between the two to restore it. When we came off of the necropolis, my friend said, "Oh, look over there," and right next to it was a massive cloud of black smoke, like black smoke. And I was like, "What's that?" And we found out that a glass factory next to the necropolis had exploded, and thankfully no one was hurt. But my friend said, "Did you do that?" And I thought, oh, there's a lot of power moving here, and potentially, when you move things around, when you move energy around, things can happen in the manifest world. And so I, covered that to make sure it wasn't anything negative, and took note that the formidable power of our desire as humans will make things move, and sometimes that creates something that looks more like destruction than creation. So I'm very aware of that as a servant of the light, that I don't want to destroy things. I want to regenerate, reconcile, and reconnect, and not to destroy. So that was the experience in Glasgow. And here at the bottom, you see there's a banner that says Inferus Hostis, which means behold a fierce enemy. And that's the crest of the UK with the lion or dragon and the unicorn above it. And interestingly, the Sphinx, all these occult symbols that, hidden in plain view, the way that the energies were used, or I would say misused, and creating imbalance. Other Scottish places that I visited, and I didn't include all of these, and I did earthwork. I didn't include all of these in this slideshow because it was just too much. But then, so I went to Oban and took a tour of Staffa and Iona. I went to Inverness, to the Clavacairns and Culloden, Fort George and the Witch's Stone, Edinburgh Castle, and the whole of Edinburgh had a similar kind of triangulation, similarly money, power, money, religion, and the power of the crown. Stirling Castle, went to see the Kelpies, and then there's a Pict seat in Dundurn, which is, I can remember the name of what it's called right now, but there's a phenomena that happened at some of these places where the stone seems to have melted, and there's a lot of story about that. But what that seat was, again, a place to go to acknowledge the indigenous, the spirit of the indigenous people and reconcile with them. So that's what we did at Dundurn. Released a lot of souls who were oppressed in that country, both the indigenous and the Scottish clans, like at Culloden. So there's a lot of releasing, restoring, earthwork done in all those places, and including, I didn't put this here, but Rosslyn Chapel, which I have a feeling is going to very much feel like the energy at Chakra, which I'm going to tomorrow. So I'm very excited about that. So at all these locations, we, myself and the other ministers with me, experienced earth spirits, cosmic energies, historical tragedies, and injustices that create thickness of the world, mind of the world over the planet, which needs to be broken up in order for that reconnection to happen. But those spirits need to be acknowledged and released. When I was in Scotland, I had a driver, a young man, who took me to several places, including the Witch's Stone, and he was very curious about what I was doing, so I told him to put his hands on and remember what had happened at this place where they had rolled women who were accused of being witches down this hill in a barrel with spikes in it, and they landed on this particular stone, and then they burned them. Most of them, of course, wouldn't have been alive, but the energy was very strong there of the spirit of these women who had not been, there had been no reconciliation or justice. So I did some work there, some singing and blessing work, and released those souls. And this young man, 34-year-old, who'd never done anything like that, said he really felt that. And then we went up to a cemetery at the top of the hill where those barrels were rolled down, and released the souls there as well. And he participated in that. It was quite lovely and spontaneous that he was able to do that and feel the energy moving. So what else here? Again, it's the attention and intention of the people going to these places that allows for energetic clearing, releasing the souls, making a bridge between heaven and earth through the energy system of our own body, and using the heart as a center point to draw the energies of the feminine from the earth and the masculine from the heavens, and join them. And this image of the Merkaba here is the energetic field that happens when that connection is taking place. So feeling into the energy of a place, Freddie Silva has some really great work around this in terms of feeling where the power structures, the topography, the hills and volcanic plugs. Many of these places are built on those kinds of energy spots, like Edinburgh Castle and Stirling Castle, built on high volcanic plugs that are of basalt. The ley lines across the world that carry energies. The water, the feminine support for masculine power, and again, usurped and chained in the UK. And then the history of what's happening there with the people. So as a Christian, we say that Jesus came and took away the sins of the world, or one might say erased the karma of the world by his own being, as a being that reconnected, restored us to our nature as spiritual beings in the material world. But a lot has happened since then, and a lot of these places have that thickness of mind. And then the place, the world mind built by toxic masculine power structure. So here's the necropolis in Glasgow again, and all the things that are coming out from there as the power point, let's say, in that area. So we know the history went from indigenous to more political than Catholic or religious, and then changing in the Reformation to the power of the masculine through business and force. So here are some of the ley lines in the UK, the Michael Mary line here across the UK, which we went to several places along there. And then there's Skellig Michael, St. Michael's Mound, Mont Saint-Michel, which we plan to go to while we're in France as well, all the way down to Mount Carmel. And we'll be at Chakra here and Rouen and the Normandy coast, which of course with the world wars, a lot of death and injustice in those areas that needs repairing. So that's what we'll be doing this week. But we did travel to Glastonbury, Stonehenge, and the grandmother yew tree to do some work in the UK. So Glastonbury Abbey at the Cathedral ruins there. Here are my friends, Mother Beatrice and Master Carr that were there with me. There's the Abbey Well and the Mary Altar, which is underground, and this beautiful water line that they have in the ground. They have put into the floor of this chapel, which was quite beautiful. And the Glastonbury thorn, which is purported to be the staff of Joseph of Arimathea when he visited that area, and this hawthorn tree grew. That thorn is not living anymore, but the plant that you can see with the leaves here that is alive is supposed to have been grafted from that. So also in this area, the tombs of King Arthur and Guinevere were said to be found in that area. So there's a lot of overlap of history, mythology, religion, mystical and mysterious things. Beautiful, beautiful place, lovely energy at the Abbey there. And then we went to the Chalice Well, so this is the feminine, the well with the water, and you see the image here of the overlapping circles in the Vesica Pisces, which is the doorway between the worlds, let's say, the thing that opens to go between the worlds. We had Mother Beatrice stay at the Chalice Well because she is 75 and she wouldn't be able to climb up the Glastonbury tour, and Master Carr and I did the climb. So we went up to the tour, and interestingly, and always what happens is that as we show up to do these kinds of things, we not only feel the energy of the earth, but then people come. And when we were inside of this, of the tour, we put up an altar to the Black Madonna of Montserrat, bringing the feminine energy up from the Chalice Well to restore balance between the tower masculine and the well feminine. And several people came through that were in a group that were being blessed in some way, and so we joined them in the blessing and had a nice, to show up in a place like this for the purpose of ritual that these people were gathering for, and to we say coincidentally have two mystic bishops in the tower waiting for them. That I love how the universe moves everything around just right for those kinds of things to happen. So we helped to bless those folks, and then a man came running in and sat down next to the Black Madonna, and he was sweating and barefoot, and I said, "No rest for the weary." And then he told me his story about feeling desperate, the desperate need to climb the mountain, to run up the mountain. Either he said he would die, or he would have some revelation. And then we had a lovely conversation and gave him a blessing, and were able to not only make the connection with the well, but also to serve the people that came under that tower while we were there. So that was a beautiful experience, joyful experience, and powerful. And then here's the power places that are considered the heart chakra of the world: the Chalice Well and Glastonbury Tour. Here's an ability to make that connection between the masculine and feminine balanced. Then Stonehenge and the Shaftesbury yew, which is a 2,000-year-old yew tree said to be alive when Jesus was on the planet. So this is the heart of the world. So our job was to connect those three and defibrillate the heart of the planet. Stonehenge was really an interesting experience. I thought I was going there to do that resuscitation work, but in fact, when I got there and I stood right up against the cord, put my bare feet underneath of it to ask entry, the spiritual energetic entry, a massive wave of love came out of Stonehenge that almost physically knocked me over. And what I felt was this circle, this power place, was so happy to have conscious people there doing something to restore connection and reconciliation. So that was a beautiful, beautiful experience of validation of the work that we were doing. And then there's Cara and Beatrice and myself at the Shaftesbury U, which we offered homage to and left some selenite and sang to the tree and thanked her for bearing witness to all that has happened since the beginning of the life of that tree several, well, 2,000 plus years ago, let's say. Very powerful experience, very uplifting. Felt like we really made some movement and increased the energy between the heavens and the earth, resuscitating the heart of the mother. So that's why we do what we do, manifesting the more beautiful world our hearts know is possible, as Charles Eisenstein says. That image of me next to the peace pole, I believe, was in Glastonbury. And then some of you might have already seen the images that I have, the portraits that I had taken with a friend of mine who's a portrait photographer, Mondi Mitchell. She was doing a series called The Unforgettable, The Over 50 Revolution. And I participated in that. And this is one of the images I did as, so my role as a bishop, I have a spiritual name, Ma Devi. And this is the staff that I made in one of the classes for Ubiquity that was called The Art of Individuation. And so this is what came out of that, which is a feminine bishop's crozier, which I call the Sophia scepter, that has all the elements of the earth, water, fire, air, wood, and which one did I forget? Earth, water, fire, and air, and plus the wood. And so that was the piece, the sculpture that came out of that, and that is my bishop's crozier, or the Sophia scepter. And this image is the image that I wanted to get across of reclaiming the feminine spiritual authority. And I feel this way about the feminine in places that I go to, and I'm sure I'll feel it in Chakra as well, of restoring the feminine to sovereign power over the mysteries and over the earthly things that need to be brought back into balance with the way that the masculine has used and misused the feminine for the sake of power over people. So that was the reason that I did that portrait series. And then I recently finished writing a book called Dancing in the Doorway, which was about my experiences, a life's journey between worlds. And that has to do, it's a purposeful memoir that has to do with experiences in my life, traumas, overcoming them, and then being in this experience of being in the doorway with having a lot of experience with deceased people, both as a child and also experiences in the world, and in my hospice days working with people who are deceased, their spirits, and then going on to talk about the earthworks and all of those connections. So it's a story of a number of years of my life, and I feel like that when I finished writing that in 2020, I feel like since then a whole new chapter has opened up that has more to do with this changing the vibration of the earth through the initiatory path of the Christian mystic, as well as the earthworks that I've been engaged with since then, and that have culminated in this class and this project that I've done for Ubiquity. And my list of references that have all been very useful to me in coming to not only experience but support and validate the experiences that I've had. So that is my presentation about earthworks and place identity and belonging. And hope this is a satisfactory project for all the purposes that I have put it together for. I will be sending it to my ministers because we continue to do this kind of work, and to the folks at Ubiquity who are meeting at Chakra. I hope it will be of support and use in the work that we'll be doing at Chakra, and certainly my friend Mother Beatrice and I be traveling around that area to Mont Saint Michel, to Normandy and Rouen. And thirdly, as credit for this class that I've taken and the work that I'm doing towards my Doctor of Ministry at Ubiquity. So thank you for your attention. I hope that was helpful to you.